Long before recorded history, before kingdoms rose or empires carved their names into stone, the earth trembled under beings whose existence has been debated, feared, and whispered about for thousands of years. They were the giants, the Nephilim, the Anakim, the Rephaim, figures so massive and powerful that their very presence shaped the fate of entire nations. Their stories linger in the shadows of Scripture, in fragments of ancient writings, in the ruins of forgotten civilizations, and in the memories of cultures scattered across the earth. But the Bible does not treat them as myth. It presents them as real, physical, terrifying beings whose rise and fall were intertwined with humanity's earliest battles between darkness and divine judgment. This is the untold chronicle of those giants, how they emerged, how they ruled, how they fell, and why their existence still captures the imagination of millions today. In the beginning, the world was still uncorrupted, fresh from the breath of creation. Humanity spread slowly across the land, guided only by the memory of Eden and the warnings passed down from Adam's descendants. Yet somewhere along the way, boundaries meant to remain untouched were crossed. According to Genesis 6, the sons of God, heavenly beings who were never meant to intermingle with mortals, broke their appointed order and took human women as wives. From these forbidden unions came children unlike anything the world had ever seen, mighty ones, men of renown, beings whose strength eclipsed that of ordinary humans. These were the Nephilim. They grew faster, larger, and more violent than anything the earth had known. Villages trembled at the sound of their footsteps. Families fled from the shadow of their anger, and soon, the world descended into lawlessness, a place where bloodshed became routine and fear became the language of survival. The giants dominated territories, enslaved towns, and crushed anything that stood in their path. Their cruelty was so overwhelming that the scriptures say the earth became filled with violence. Humanity cried out for deliverance. Heaven listened, but judgment did not come immediately. Instead, something even more mysterious happened, something rarely told in modern times. According to ancient writings preserved in the Book of Enoch, the very beings who helped create this chaos, the Watchers, the fallen angels, began to panic. They saw the destruction their offspring unleashed. They saw the corruption spreading across the world, and they feared punishment. In desperation, they turned to one man, Enoch, the prophet who walked with God. Enoch, the man who never tasted death. Enoch, whose obedience made him a bridge between heaven and earth. They begged him to intercede. They pleaded for mercy. And Enoch listened. But the giants listened too. For the first time, the Nephilim felt something they had never known. Fear. These towering beings who crushed armies and ruled by terror trembled at the possibility of divine judgment. Some demanded answers, others roared in rage. And a few, according to ancient tradition, felt something even stranger: remorse. Among them was a giant remembered only through vague fragments and whispered traditions, a being described as the Silent One. Unlike his brothers, this giant stopped destroying, stopped commanding, and withdrew from the violence. Some say he climbed mountains and stared into the heavens for days. Others say he searched for Enoch, seeking the message God had given him. But no text records exactly what happened. Only rumors remain that an unseen messenger appeared before him radiating with a light the giant could not withstand, that he was warned of the approaching judgment, that his massive footprints led to the edge of a cliff, where they suddenly ended as if something had pulled him upward into the sky. His disappearance terrified the other giants. If one of their own could be taken, then none of them were safe. From that moment on, chaos erupted among the Nephilim. Some dismissed the warnings and doubled down on their violence. Others, very few, tried to hide. But as corruption darkened the earth, a single man remained righteous: Noah. His obedience became the dividing line between the world that existed and the world that would be wiped away. God commanded Noah to build an ark, a vessel not just of survival but of reset, of justice, of purification. While humans mocked Noah for building a ship on dry land, the giants mocked him even louder. Their voices thundered across valleys. Their words shook the ground. But something strange began to happen. The skies darkened, the wind changed. Animals began moving toward Noah without being summoned. Nature itself responded to a coming disaster it could sense but not see. The giants watched as the impossible unfolded. When the first raindrops fell, some laughed. When the earth cracked open and waters surged from below, laughter turned to shock. And when the waters rose above their knees, then their chests, then their necks, fear overwhelmed them. Some tried to climb mountains. Others attempted to break their way into the ark. There are legends that some giants even begged Noah for mercy. But their fate had already been sealed. The higher they climbed, the higher the waters rose. Their roars echoed across the world, then disappeared beneath the flood. The age of giants ended in a single moment of universal judgment. And yet, the Bible hints that not all perished. Genesis 6:4 says, "There were giants in the earth in those days, and also afterward." After the flood, new giants appeared, not Nephilim born of fallen angels, but human-descended groups renowned for their towering size and strength. Among them were the Anakim, descendants of Enoch, who terrified the spies of Israel. When they explored the promised land, they said, "We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes." Their fear spread through the camp like wildfire. The people panicked. They doubted God. And because of that fear, an entire generation was barred from entering the land. But the giants did not end there. The Rephaim, a mysterious group scattered across Canaan and beyond, continued to dominate territories. The most famous of them rose generations later, Goliath of Gath, a towering warrior armed with bronze, bearing a spear like a weaver's beam, and covered in armor so heavy that most soldiers could not even lift it. He mocked Israel. He mocked God. He mocked a young shepherd boy named David until a single stone ended his reign. Goliath was a symbol, but not the end. The Bible mentions another giant with 24 fingers and toes, a warrior so unusual that he stood out even among the Rephaim. There was also Og, king of Bashan, whose iron bed measured over 13 feet. His kingdom spanned fortified cities. His military strength shook nearby nations, yet he too fell under the judgment of God. Their presence raises questions scholars still debate today. Were these giants remnants of ancient genetic lines? Were they echoes of pre-flood corruption? Were they simply humans of extraordinary size? Or were they something more? What we do know is this. Whenever giants appear in Scripture, the message is the same. Human strength, even when amplified to monstrous proportions, is nothing before the sovereignty of God. And that brings us to the most powerful truth of all. Every giant mentioned in the Bible, from the Nephilim to Goliath, ultimately served as a backdrop for God's power to be revealed. They were warnings. They were lessons. And in many ways, they were symbols of the obstacles believers still face today, obstacles that seem too big, too strong, too impossible to defeat. But the same God who humbled the giants of old still reigns today. If you want episode 2 of this, comment giants and share this video with someone who loves biblical mysteries.